Hey everybody, if you watched the first video, that was the top 5 best purchases I've made since I've started photography. Just trying to clue you in on some things that I think were really worth the money and they have paid off great dividends since owning them. Now I'm going to talk about some 5 things that I think did not pay off and did not do me any really good, and I just pretty much wasted money on, which we've probably all been there. You bought something, you thought it was going to be cool or help you out, and you know, maybe you made an impulse purchase and then you regretted it later, like, yeah, this didn't pay off at all. So here's my list of the 5 worst purchases I've made since being a photographer. Number 1 is going to be cheap light stands. Okay, so cheap light stand. With a cheap light stand, you're going to get a very thin light stand as far as the rolled metal is thin, and it does not have an air cushion, so when you loosen the knob on it, it just drops straight down, which is not good. You got a light on there, it's heavy, it might be expensive, and if it just slams down, it's just not good. The higher quality stands, they have a air cushioning to them, so when you drop it down, the air will allow it to slowly come down, protecting the light that's on top so nothing just falls off. So I bought a few of the light stands in the beginning of my photography business, trying to save a buck. You know, you spend high dollars on lenses and cameras, maybe you could save a few bucks on the light stand or a bag or some other stuff, which I've learned sometimes is really a no-no, because you can't have high dollar stuff and carry it around in cheap bags, or you can't put a high dollar light on a cheap stand because it's just not a good mix. So first thing is light stands. I would say invest in the best ones you can afford, because they're going to pay off. You won't buy it again. It's going to be there for a long time. They don't break. The knobs are metal. They're not plastic. The plastic knob ones, they usually crack eventually. And so it's just the threads and the holes and threads that are in these things, the stuff just falls apart. The legs are going up and down, and those joints and all that hardware starts to wear out and come loose. I've had screws, nuts, and bolts come off the cheap light stands, and like I said, that dropping down with no control, pain, terrible, doesn't look good, doesn't sound good, doesn't keep you sounding and looking professional. When you're over there in the corner and you let your light stand down, it goes slam, and it startles you, startles other people, and they're looking over there and you sweating like you didn't mean to make that noise. It's just not good. So invest in good light stands, because cheap light stands, no. Cheap tripod, number 2. I bought a cheap tripod in the very beginning of my photography career. I had no need for a tripod. Most photographers told me they don't use it, they don't like it, restricts them, etc. I get that. But if you do need a tripod, maybe you are shooting something where you want to put the camera on a tripod. And most photographers will have one, you just don't use it that much. Some people use it all the time, some people use it limited, and I use mine in limited cases. But even in limited cases, you need to get the best tripod you can afford. Because I went on a trip to San Francisco, and I didn't have a tripod. And I wanted to take pictures of myself at the Golden Gate Bridge. So I figured I would go ahead. I ran to Walmart, true story, ran to Walmart, went over there to the little photography aisle, and I found a tripod. I think it was $19.99. It might have been $29.99. And it wasn't the cheapest one. It might have been a little bit thicker, a little bit better built. So I bought that model. It packed up, it fit in my suitcase, took it with me. Got out to the Golden Gate Bridge, sat the tripod up. Now it had a little plastic hand cranking wheel to make that centerpiece come up and down. That was plastic. And the little plate that you put your camera on, that screws into the bottom of your camera, the plate was plastic with a little rubber piece on top and a screw on the bottom. So I put this, at the time I had Olympus, but I had to have, let's say I had $2,000 as far as the camera and the lens with the, I had a speedlight on top. I might have had $2,500 in my hand. I put that on the plate, put the plate in the tripod, set the tripod up, put the camera on timer because I wanted to take some remote control pictures of myself with the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. Set it up, took a picture, took a test shot, look at it, come back, picture, and then eventually, if anybody's been to the Golden Gate Bridge, you know it's windy out there. Most ocean, ocean areas and all that are windy. So I get over there, and this is it's kind of a windy day. The wind gusts are kind of blowing in and stopped, and it's peaceful. Then it's windy. I took another picture. I walk over. I take another photo. As I'm standing there, about to pose and take another one, wind gust comes by, blows the tripod. Tripod falls. So I see it starting to fall, and I scream, "No!" And I'm running over there trying to catch it. I didn't catch it. It hits the ground. Bam! The flash banged on the ground. A piece of the flash, the little diffuser plastic piece, popped out. Batteries flew open off. The door opened on the side of the flash. So my flash took a hit because the plastic got cracked and the diffuser piece broke. The camera still worked, the flash still worked, but they took a hit. And it was a warning for me. I had $2,500 or so in my head sitting on a $20 or $30 tripod. And it was not the right gear for the job. So after that, heart attack that happened to me, I eventually, when I could, I went back to the camera store and I bought a real tripod that my camera's sitting on right now, which is a Manfrotto. And it's a real tripod that I had to buy a head that goes on top. So the tripod only, then you buy a head that you want to go on top of it. So I might have spent, I don't know, it might have been $150 on the tripod. And then the head itself, I got it on sale, and I think it was over $100 head, but I might have got it for like another 75 bucks. So now my camera sits on maybe a $225, $250 rig of a tripod and a head. But it's heavier, the legs are fully adjustable, it's never been tipped over, it's never been blown over, and I can count on it. So that's the thing is, with cameras, I could have, $5,000 in a camera and a lens. And I don't want to sit there on anything super cheap that could blow over and damage my gear. So invest in a good tripod, you will not regret it. Third worst purchase that I bought, number 3. I bought a slider because I was doing videos and I was trying to get that cool motion and slide effects in the video, and I thought, oh, if I put my camera on this slider, this is going to change the game for me. So I bought this slider. I don't know, it might have been $150 or so. I can't remember the sticker price. It wasn't super expensive because I've seen the ones that are super expensive. But this one, you're supposed to be able to put it on light stands and put your camera on it, and then you could slide it to film whatever you're filming. I got it. I tried it. I put it on one tripod. So you can center mount it. You can put it on a tripod in the center of the slider, and the ends are just free floating. But then you're starting to slide this thing over like this. Well, I put my camera on there, and it's not sturdy enough to hold a DSLR. I had a 5D Mark II with a lens on it. It starts to weight it down. So then now it's teetering almost like a seesaw. And so if I try to hold it and slide, the camera's so heavy that in the groove when you slide it, it starts to shake the whole slider, and my camera is vibrating like zzz, as if I'm trying to move it across. It's not able to just float. The higher cost sliders are built so when you put your camera near it, that thing will float across and slide very smoothly with no restriction. But the weight of my camera was pushing down so hard in that groove that you had to force it, and it was actually getting stuck. So the slider purchase was a bad purchase. And the other way you can use it is on a tabletop or on a floor. It probably will work better on a floor or a tabletop, but when am I going to be on a shoot and have a table? Or I'm going to be outside and be able to put this on the ground. That's not what I do. So using it on a tabletop is not going to work for me. Using it on the floor is probably not an angle that I want to do. So the slider purchase was a waste of money. It might come in, I still have it in the closet, it might come in handy one day, but for right now it's not worth it for me. So that was a bad purchase. I talked about the FONG Dome on my other video. This purchase was actually a good purchase when I was using it. But since MagMod came out, then this has been like nothing. I've left this in the closet. I don't use it anymore because it takes too long to put on, too long to take off. packing of it is not that simple. Everything's hard and rigid, and it just doesn't fit everything nice, and it's not speedy. So Gary FONG ended up going pretty much to the left. When I got MagMod, MagMod was much better. So number 4 worst purchase, I ranked it as my number 4 worst purchases because I had 2 of these kits, and these kits were probably $100 or something like that. I don't know. I know you can get one piece is $50. The one white, this deal is $50 or $59. It comes in a box like this. This is like $59, but then you can buy a whole kit, and that might have been $150. So I bought this whole kit that came with multiple tops. It came with another one of these. It came with, which was actually working pretty good for me, was the other pieces that has a grid. This little black grid and a black, another holder. This was working really well as my hair light setup when I was shooting stuff. I would actually set this up. But you can see, I'm sitting up here now trying to put it together for demo, for this video, and it's not even going in that easy. Okay, so now you put that in there, and then this on the speed light, and then this gives me a gridded speed light if I stuck this in the back. So I would use this for a hair light sometimes in the back of photos. I liked it at once, but like I said, it's bulky and it's not that easy to use. It's not speedy, so I don't use it anymore. So now it's my 4th worst purchase because I pushed it aside. Number 5, last story. I was building my studio and I needed some stools to pose people on, something to sit on, and I wanted to get stools with wheels so they could easily move across the floor. I had some stationary stools, which are fine, and I did buy those at Walmart, and some of them are still downstairs in my studio in service because they work fine. But I wanted some rolling stools. You've been to the doctor, your doctor comes in, sits on a nice cushion stool, and he's rolling across the floor, checking you out, talking to you. Okay, so I'm going to invest in me some stools. The first stools I bought them from Adorama. They had posing stools, and I swear those stools they had to be close to $100 each. I bought 2. And I got the stools. They look kind of cool because they had them in different colors. They came in black and white and red and blue or something like that. So I bought 2 black ones. But the thing I didn't really think about, and the thing that paid off later, was the top of the stool where people sit down was hard plastic. And then the center column, of course, is metal, and the bottom is wheels, or I don't know, they might have been metal or plastic or whatever they were. But that plastic top was very hard, brittle plastic, and sure enough, you got this circle seat that people can sit on the front edge and the back edge, and your weight is different places, and eventually that plastic is going to give and break depending on how heavy people are. So, or just for years of use. So I had the stools probably for maybe a year or 2. And the bad story with it was eventually the stool had cracked. And I did notice, I think I noticed the crack, but it might have been cracked under the bottom. And I think it was because the stool started to teeter a little bit on that center pole that was in the bottom, and maybe eventually some stress of it, and it put a little hairline crack in the bottom of the stool. I didn't think much of the crack on the bottom. Might have even put a piece of tape on the joint to kind of just secure that crack. And one day I had a session with a girl, female client, and she did some beauty pictures and did some, it was a beauty session. And sure enough, we just got started into the session within the first hour, and I put her on that stool, and she was sitting there, and then the stool broke, and she fell on the floor. So she's sitting on this stool, and I felt so bad. I mean, she might have, been in something sexy or whatever, and she was sitting there, and the seat part broke, and she fell right on the floor. And I'm a guy, I know, chivalry and being a gentleman. I'm feeling bad, so I go help her up and all that, and I'm feeling terrible. This is a client of mine who, she broke the chair. She feels bad because she feels like she broke the chair. And she could have got injured, on my shoot. She could have got hurt. She could have sued me, all those things. she took it like a champ. She didn't get upset, and she didn't, you know, curse me out or call me all kind of names and all that. I apologized 1,000 times. But sure enough, that taught me another lesson of you really got to inspect your gear. You got to think about what you're using and what you're doing when you're on a shoot. So I had some stools that were kind of cheap, and the overall of these 5 worst things is more than likely is cheap items that you buy are going to get you in the end. Anything cheap is not going to work out, especially if you're trying to use it over and over and over. It could work for 1 or 2 times here and there. You're lucky after that, you're pushing it. And that goes from the light stands, the tripod, the slider didn't slide well. Gary FONG wasn't really cheap. It just that somebody, to me, improved on his design and it became a faster product, so I like it better. And then the stools, I think they were a little cheap. So since then, I invested in better stools that were cushion top chairs with the sliding wheels. I bought only one of those because I use it for me, and I have my clients sit on regular stools. They don't need to slide around. But if anything I can say about the 5 worst things for me is they, in a sense, were cheap. So if there's anything I can pass on to you, it is don't use anything cheap if you're trying to be a professional photographer. Lenses, triggers, light stands, modifiers, etc., 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 because you're going to get burned eventually. So if you know that going in, maybe you get the best you can afford at the time, and that will help you out. So that's my 5 worst purchases. I'll run them down one more time. Light stands, tripod, slider, a Gary FONG system, plastic top rolling stool for the studio. So invest in quality stuff. They'll pay off better dividends, and you'll have the stuff for a longer time. Once again, this is Rich Monyer from Paul Marcus Photos. Hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the page, and there'll be more content coming out. All right, thank you. Peace.